Hey guys, Bobby Bollinger here, and today I'll be bringing you my NFL Week 2 predictions for the 2017 season. Last week, there we go. Last week, because it's week 1, things went relatively 50-50. And because of a game cancellation, there were only 15 games instead of the usual 16. So, my record's 7-8 currently, which, week 1's a bunch of 50-50s. So, I got basically a 50-50. First game of next week, Texans against Bengals. Both of these teams sucked last week. Holy crud. On the Texans side, they let the Jaguars sack their quarterbacks a total of 10 times, which might be a league record. I'd have to check. Meanwhile, the Bengals' Andy Dalton threw a total of 4 interceptions against the Ravens. Now, I'm sure some of this has to do with week 1 weirdness, but even so, those are not good signs for these teams at all. The Texans actually gave up on Tom Savage halfway through the game. It got so bad. They gave Brock Osweiler up until the third to last week of last season to get it together before they replaced him. They gave Tom Savage half a game. And Deshaun Watson, well, he scored the team's only touchdown, but he also got intercepted. So, Texans, they just aren't well coached, I don't think. And the quarterback situation, not that good. Bengals, meanwhile, are just a mess. I mean, they went to the playoffs for a long, long time, but without Coach Hugh Jackson, things started falling apart. And because I don't think the Bengals even have a great defense to rely on, I think the Texans can take this win. Oh yeah, by the way, J.J. Watt got hurt again. I don't want to say it because it wasn't actually that big of a deal of an injury, but like Gronk and some other guys, injuries just might be his thing now. Okay, Bills versus Panthers. This is a tough game to predict. A lot of them this week are. I'm not sure how to do this one. The Bills sewed up against the Jets. Congratulations. The Panthers sewed up against the 49ers. Congratulations. As for how these teams are made up and how they stack up, it's still hard to say because they're so similar. I'm gonna give it to Buffalo, I guess, because I think that at least they didn't waste their first pick on a guy who's not even starting. Okay. Now, week 1 weirdness is over for the Bears. They can go back to being pummeled by Super Bowl contenders. But for the Bucs, week 1 weirdness is still in full effect because they didn't play week 1. So this is their week 1. Now, I had the Bucs beating the Dolphins, and I had it that way because I didn't trust Jay Cutler. Now, I don't necessarily trust Mike Glennon, but I trust Jordan Howard and their other new running back to destroy the Bucs, who, quite honestly, probably don't have a good run-stuffing defensive line. It just isn't there. More than the Falcons, they will let the Bears run all over them. They can score points. I'm not sure how much more they can score than the Falcons, or if they'll score more than the Falcons, but I trust the Bears on this game, at least. Okay, Vikings versus Steelers. I've got the Steelers winning. Now, that doesn't mean just because I picked the Browns to win last week that I therefore think the Browns are better than the Vikings. They're not. The Browns were simply facing the Steelers in week 1 as divisional rivals. Some weird stuff was gonna happen. This time around, the Vikings, I do think they're improved from last year. But the Steelers' D-line is fairly good. It's great at run stuffing, so Dalvin Cook, behind a probably below average offensive line, shouldn't be getting anything, really. So it's up to Sam Bradford to outduel Ben Roethlisberger. Who wants to take those chances? Not me. Next game, Cardinals versus Colts. Okay, the good news for my Colts is David Johnson is out for the year. And so the fantasy owners cried. Yeah. I like how I started being like, I don't exactly trust David Johnson to be my running back last year when they started making him more of a wide receiver. And now I can laugh at you for that. Ha ha ha, YouTube commenters on other videos. I told you to go with Ezekiel Elliott. But anyway, the Cardinals, Carson Palmer's age may actually be getting to him, and I'm sure Larry Fitzgerald is continuing his decline. But the bigger problem is that the Cardinals only have Larry Fitzgerald to throw to now. David Johnson was their second best receiver. That's why your running back should never be your second best receiver. They're gonna be injured at some point. You can't have your second best receiver be injured at some point in the season. So the Cardinals, they're definitely a weakened team. I cannot see playoffs happening for them at all. But until the Colts get luck, I kind of doubt they can win against anyone but the Jets. So, Cardinals, you get to take it. Have a freebie. Patriots versus Saints. Now, the Patriots did kind of fall apart last week, but that was against a pretty good defense. The Saints do not have a very good defense. And with the loss of Brandon Cooks, they don't exactly have as good of an offense anymore. I'm sure it's still a good offense with Drew Brees, but without Brandon Cooks, it had to be weakened. So the Patriots should rebound from last week's loss against a solid victory over the Saints. Browns versus Ravens. Okay. Last week, I said the Browns would beat the Steelers. And it was basically on the backs of, it's week 1, anything can happen. This time, that isn't in play. And it's simply, who do I think the better team is in this matchup? And I honestly think that's the Browns. The Browns' defensive line was really good last week. Le'Veon Bell got nothing. And that's kind of hard to do. The Ravens don't have a running back as good as Bell, nor do they have an offensive line as good as Bell, so there is no way they are running the ball on the Browns. Now, as for quarterbacking, their quarterback is not as good as Ben Roethlisberger currently. Big Ben will slow down later in the season. He'll get injured later in the season. But for now, he can pass as that high-octane guy. Ravens do not have that, have never had that, might not ever have that, actually. So the Browns should be off the hook, especially because they don't have an Antonio Brown either. The defense for the Ravens is better, but I think the Browns should be able to grind this one out. And don't worry, I will lose faith in the Browns eventually. Eagles versus Chiefs. This one is extremely difficult. But if I have to go with someone, I'll go with the Eagles. Because I just think the Eagles can win this one. Let's start off with the Eagles defense. Eagles have an incredible defensive line, and it should do a very good job of stuffing Kareem Hunt. Not to the point where he's nothing, but to the point where it's up to Alex Smith to win the game. And can Alex Smith do that with the help of his defense? That's kind of a shaky question. Because if Eric Berry was still around, I'd say yes and give it to the Chiefs. Without Berry, it's kind of a toss-up. So I'm giving it to the Eagles because if last year's an indication, they at least start off this season strong. Next game, Titans versus Jaguars. Holy crap. Come out of nowhere win of the week. Jaguars with 10 sacks on the Houston Texans. Will they repeat that against the Titans? No. The Houston Texans last year had an O-line, and I could definitely see it becoming a bad O-line, and that being the reason for their 10 sacks. Titans might have the best O-line in all of football. So, there won't be nearly as many sacks in this game. And I don't know exactly what happened to the Titans last week. Like, I could see them losing to the Raiders. I can understand that. What I can't understand is how the heck they had nothing in the running game, and they tried to run it too. Like, how did the Raiders stuff their run? Like, does playing against Marshawn Lynch in practice just make you a better defensive line? I don't know. But I can attribute some of the stuff to week one weirdness. So I'm going to go with the team I think is better, and that's still the Titans. It will take me a while to hop off a bandwagon here of who I think is better. But this is playing it safe. So I'll go with the Titans to rebound off their loss. Maybe screw up Blake Bortles some. That's always nice to see. Jets versus Raiders. I wonder who'll win this one. Dolphins versus Chargers. Hey, Dolphins still have week one weirdness going on. Good for them. This game, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure where the Chargers are. And I'm not sure where the Dolphins are. So, I'm going to give it to the Chargers off the fact that the Dolphins started out really slow last year, and I think they're worse this year. While the Chargers are better. Again, this is a really close game to call. It won't necessarily be a close game, but it's a hard one to pick the winner of. Cowboys versus Broncos. Last year, the Broncos could not stop the run to save their life. And I don't exactly see a reason for them to have gotten better at it. And they happen to be against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, some might say, yeah, but the Broncos are still an elite defense. Well, the Cowboys just went against what should be one of the best defenses in the NFL in the Giants. So this is basically their game against the Giants. Except in Denver. Ezekiel Elliott should be able to plow through them, and Dak Prescott does a wonderful job of taking care of the ball. So a Denver defense that probably lives off of interceptions, probably not going to get an interception off of Dak. He is that kind of quarterback. 49ers versus Seahawks. In the times where the 49ers were at least decent, they could hang with the Seahawks. But not anymore. It's a team that's rebuilding. I don't see any reason other than divisional rivalry to beat the Seahawks. Next. Redskins versus Rams. I'm taking the Rams here because what I saw last week was incredible from the Rams. And for the Redskins, this is basically just the Eagles again. A great defensive line, possibly a better secondary, in exchange for probably a slightly worse offense. So it's going to be it's just the Eagles, except more defensive for the Redskins. And I don't really trust them to beat that. Plus, if Aaron Donald comes back and plays how he should, the Redskins are going to have issues. Now, it won't be the blowout it was against the Colts, because the Redskins at least have their quarterback and an offensive line and Josh Gordon. So they shouldn't be blown out too bad, but I expect the Rams to take it. Next up, Packers versus Falcons. Apparently this is the game of the week. The Falcons seem to have adopted a more balanced style of offense, which a healthy Packers team should absolutely obliterate. I don't think the Falcons are going to win this game. And finally, Lions against Giants. What I think of the Lions still stands. I think they still don't have much of a defense, and their offensive line still sucks, so they don't have a running game. In other words, they're a one-dimensional offense that the Giants should be able to decimate. Now, the Giants shouldn't be too high scoring, of course. They're a defensive team that has no running game. But I think I will give them the advantage here, because when a high-octane offense gets into a low-scoring game, it tends to have problems, especially when it's against a team that's used to scoring low. So I give this win here, last one of the week, to the Giants. Tell me who you guys think's going to win in the comment section below, and I'll see you next week. Get it.